So unfortunately, folks, Walmart in the United States has now come out and said they have to raise prices because of the tariff war between China and the United States. They were attempting to absorb the cost, but this is now apparently not going to be able to be done. So on many grocery items, there's going to be increases in the United States, and also over 800 different products that they currently get from China that you'll find in the general merchandise section will also start going up. Folks, this is probably the first of many big retailers in the United States to start increasing their prices. And this is, they've come out and directly said this is because of the trade war, specifically the tariffs which Donald Trump has put on China. And now they're going to have to pass on that tariff, that tax, onto the consumer. They have no choice. Folks, this information came from CNN. My name is Nick. I'd love you guys to give me a follow. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.
Be pregnant.
I can't say it enough. His goal is civil war, right versus left. This is what he's posted this morning. Republicans must unite behind the one big, beautiful bill, which does not have no tax for overtime, which does not have no tax for tips, and which does cut many Americans off of Medicaid and Medicare. He says not only does it cut taxes for all Americans, but it will kick millions of illegal aliens off of Medicaid to protect it for those who are the ones in real need. The country will suffer greatly without this legislation, with their taxes going up to 65%. This is what he's telling MAGA. They believe him. It will be blamed on the Democrats, but that doesn't help our voters. We don't need grandstanders in the Republican Party. Stop talking and get it done. It's time to fix the mess that Biden and the Democrats gave us. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And on the heels of this, he posted, all caps, the Supreme Court is being played by the radical left losers who have no support. The public hates them. The public is them. And their only hope is the intimidation of the court itself. Projection. We can't let that happen to our country. Fear, hatred, division.
Dies.
The left owes us a massive apology. It has been win after win lately with the Trump administration, and they are dead silent on all of this. Starting off with the massive trade deal with China, where they dropped their tariffs to 10%. Meanwhile, we're still dropping tariffs on them, but to a little bit more of 30%, showing that we won that trade war the left was talking about. This was paired with a total stock market rebound. It is completely back to pre-April levels, causing economists to decrease the rate of a probable secession down to minimal numbers.
Hey, Spider-Man, so the word you're looking for is recession, not secession. But I can understand why a Republican might get those words mixed up. Now, Luke, why do you think it is that ever since Trump put a pause on his dumbass tariffs, economists have been slightly less worried about going into a recession? Why do you think that is, Luke? Oh, you got it. Because Trump put a pause on his dumbass tariffs. And it is a pause, Luke. It's not a trade deal. Trump has not made a trade deal with China yet. In fact, Trump sucks at making deals. All he knows how to do is fuck things up and then pause that. Now, Luke, let's take a look at the stock market, shall we? If we observe the beginning and the end of this graph, you'll notice that you guys aren't even back to where you started when Trump took office. You're almost there, but not quite there yet. So, Luke, we're not going to apologize to you or even really congratulate you guys, because these numbers do not even remotely impress us. But how about this, Luke? We'll be waiting at the starting line with bells and whistles when you guys get here, and we'll say, good job, guys. Good job not fucking it up for long enough to where you could crawl your way back to the starting line. Great job. Now, positive energy. No more backtracking. All right, Luke, we can't wait till you guys start making things better instead of just pausing all the things that you made worse. All right, Luke, chop chop. Get to it. All right, good luck, man.
We have two breaking news stories. The first is I found a t-shirt for sale in Las Vegas, which is basically the subtitle to my autobiography, Bad Choices Make Good Stories. So I bought that. I bought some other t-shirts as well, which I'll be showing in subsequent videos. The United States Supreme Court maintains a block on Donald Trump's deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. They issued an order today. A divided Supreme Court on Friday kept in place a block on the Trump administration's use of the rarely invoked wartime power to deport migrants who are currently located in northern Texas. Remember that a couple of weeks ago, a Trump-appointed judge in western Texas, in Brownsville, Texas, put out a very detailed opinion stating that the Trump organization was using the Alien Enemies Act illegally and was violating the terms of that statute and had not met the requirements of that statute by showing that the United States was either in a state of war or that we were subject to or experiencing an invasion being directed by a foreign government. A Trump-appointed judge was like, yeah, you ain't got it. This ain't it. You don't have it. And shut him down. So a divided Supreme Court kept that block in place. The majority in today's unsigned opinion was on the emergency docket, called the detainees' interests particularly weighty because of the risk of removal to a notorious mega prison in El Salvador where detainees could face indefinite detention for the rest of their lives, despite having been convicted of fewer felonies than Donald Trump. That's true. Yeah. President Donald Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to target a Venezuelan gang is one of the most controversial parts. I fucking hate mainstream media. It's illegal and it's unconstitutional. It's not controversial. I'm reading this from the Washington Post. He's doing this illegally. The justices had told the administration in early April that it must give targeted detainees sufficient notice within a reasonable time and in such a manner that they can challenge their removal, due process, have a hearing in the jurisdictions where they are being held. The High Court intervened again a week later, issuing an extraordinary middle-of-the-night order to temporarily halt deportations of a group of migrants in northern Texas. They were actually in western Texas. Well, no, that group was in northern Texas. Lawyers for those migrants said they had been loaded onto buses and were at risk of imminent removal to Sikot prison in El Salvador, one of the worst, if not the worst, gulag prisons in the Western Hemisphere. In their order of today, Friday, the justices reinforced in much stronger language the importance of courts ensuring a fair or due process before deportation and alluded to the Trump administration's handling of Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, a Maryland man who was wrongly deported and who is now imprisoned for life in Sikot prison for terrorists and gang members in El Salvador, despite a 2019 order barring such action, preventing him specifically from being deported to El Salvador. The court said a detainee must have sufficient time and information to reasonably be able to contact counsel, file a petition, and pursue appropriate relief, according to the unsigned order from a majority of justices. The roughly 24 hours notice provided to detainees in northern Texas in English, a language most of them don't read, quote, devoid of information about how to exercise their due process rights to contest the removal, and it surely does not pass muster, the order stated. Here's the shocking part. This is really shocking. I did not see this part coming at all. Totally unprepared for this. Conservative Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas dissented. Yeah. The Supreme Court made clear it was not addressing the broader question about whether Trump officials can legally invoke the Alien Enemies Act against members of Tren de Aragua, the street gang from Venezuela. Instead, they sent the case back to the U.S. the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit for further proceedings. So, just for context, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is comprised almost entirely of people who make Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas look like squishy liberals. Yeah. We recognize the significance of the government's national security interests, as well as the necessity that such interests be pursued in a manner consistent with the Constitution, said the order of today. In a concurring statement, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, hang on a second. Hang on a second. my brain needs a moment to process that statement, where the Supreme Court did the right thing and followed with, in a concurring statement, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who apparently today is also doing the right thing, said the Supreme Court's injunction simply ensures that the judiciary can decide whether these Venezuelan detainees may lawfully be removed under the Alien Enemies Act before they are in fact removed from the United States. Kavanaugh said he would have preferred to have the Supreme Court take up the underlying legal questions and called for a prompt and final resolution of the matter. I think that indicates to me that even Brett Kavanaugh is like, they don't have it on the Alien Enemies Act. They haven't met their burden. They've not met the statutory requirements of the Alien Enemies Act. Lower courts have largely rejected the administration's rationale for fast-track deportation. Justices in Colorado, New York, and Texas have all concluded that it was unlawful for Trump to invoke the Alien Enemies Act and explicitly rejected the administration's declarations that the United States is being invaded by a Venezuelan gang at the direction of the Venezuelan government or president to justify its use of the centuries-old act to try to deport migrants without a hearing, without due process. And this court said a few weeks ago, even if you're going to use the Alien Enemies Act, every single deportee is entitled to notice and an opportunity to contest their designation as a gang member and to contest their deportation order. All three of those things add up to due process, a hearing where the government has to prove its case against each individual immigrant that they intend to deport. So this is really good. This is really good news. It's going to completely wreck Donald Trump's weekend, and I love that for him because I don't like him, and I want him to have a shitty weekend. At pretty much every single weekend, I want Donald Trump to have a shitty weekend. So let's all take a moment of silence. Let's take a deep breath. Hold it. Let it out. Let's get those sit bones situated. Let's align those chakras. And let's bring all of our cosmic energy to the following statement. I hope Donald Trump has a shitty weekend. We're putting that energy out into the world. That's right. All right, everybody. I hope everybody has a fun and safe weekend. Stay out of trouble. Don't get arrested. And if you do, don't call me. I'm in Vegas.
What Trump supporters do not understand is that there will not be a point of change. There will not be a point where everything suddenly makes sense or is suddenly worth it. There will not be a point where the pain that you endured, the hardship, the anxieties, the frustrations, the schisms, all of that suddenly becomes worth it because Trump reveals a master plan at hand. Because there is no master plan. He is operating on an extremely short-term basis. He's operating, in a sense, with a lack of self-discipline that allows for him to plan things years in advance. He's very much operating on a short-term basis because that is what he's been doing from the very beginning. There isn't going to be a period where this all becomes worth it or where suddenly things get better because this is a politician who built a campaign and platform over people being angry and discontent. This is a politician who built a campaign over complaining about other people. And now that he has almost all the power in the world, has he stopped complaining? No, he continues to complain, not just about other people, but now the results of his own actions, the results of the actions of his own people, the results of the actions of his own directives. Because I see these Trump supporters, and they have rationalized everything up and down. They have rationalized these tariffs that are even bad for them directly by saying that this pain will be necessary for the United States. They have rationalized mass deportations, even of U.S. citizens, as being somehow good for the United States. And when will they ever realize that this is just a rich man who is making his rich friends richer? When will they ever realize that there is not a point where this guy who has complained for almost a decade over everything that happens in the United States, that he will suddenly stop and change? No, it won't get better. This man won't change. His whole thing is about being discontent with the world, and he's going to keep doing that until the day he dies.
So I have a lot of videos out there about how states like Texas have sued the federal government so they don't have to follow what's called the EMTALA law, which means if a woman shows up at an emergency room, they must do everything they can to save her life. But they don't want to do that because she might be pregnant, and the procedures they perform might end her pregnancy. And my comments get filled with reasonable people that say, well, that doesn't make any sense because if she passes, so does the baby. Well, now we know because of what they're doing in Georgia to this woman. Now we know what their plan is. Their plan is to allow the woman to pass away and then keep her alive on machines to keep growing the fetus. Because a woman is nothing more than a vessel to grow children for the billionaires. They don't care about her life. And so now we know the answer. They will let her pass away in an emergency room. They will let a woman pass away if there's the slightest chance she might be.
A civil war is brewing within MAGA over whether it's okay that President Trump is making deals with Qatar and Hamas without Israel's involvement and is accepting a $400 million private jet from Qatar to be the new Air Force One that he will also keep for his personal use after he leaves office. And some MAGA people are pissed. I made a video earlier today with clips from Newsmax. The more I think about this though, the funnier it is, because the only reason they are mad is because he took the bribe from a Muslim majority country. If he had taken these exact same bribes from Russia or Hungary or any of his other white crony crime states, no one would have an issue with it. They'd be saying, well, it's his right to have a private jet. But because it was from a Muslim nation, now you've got Ben Shapiro on his podcast today saying he's taking money from jihadis. And it's so obvious that whenever MAGA is forced to choose between being racist and supporting Donald Trump, they pick being racist every single time. Trump famously said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose any votes, and I think that's true, but I also think that if someone paid him $1 million to stand on Fifth Avenue and say Black Lives Matter, he would lose every single vote. And by the way, that's the problem we really have to deal with. Donald Trump is not the problem, he is the symptom. He is the cancerous growth that comes after you've been drinking soda and smoking cigarettes for 250 years. Except in this case, the soda and cigarettes are white supremacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for stagflation. Donald Trump's economic policies are failing. His tariffs, this clumsy, outdated tough guy act on trade, are crashing into reality. Prices are rising, the stock market is crashing, consumer sentiment is down the drain, supply chains are tightening, and growth is already softening, and he knows it. So what's the move? Do what he always does when he is losing. Blame someone else. This time, it's the Fed. He's pressuring Jerome Powell to slash interest rates, publicly floating his removal, calling him Mr. Too Late. Why? Because Trump wants to juice the economy, not because it's the right policy, but because it's the right optics. This isn't economic strategy. It's marketing. It's vibes over vision. He's tanking the economy with one hand and yelling at the Fed with the other for not making it look better. He's gone full Richard Nixon. And you know what they say. You never go full Nixon. In 1971, the U.S. economy was stuck. Inflation was rising, unemployment was high, and Richard Nixon wanted a way out. So he did what presidents aren't supposed to do. He leaned hard on the supposedly independent Federal Reserve. Nixon privately pressured Fed Chair Arthur Burns to slash interest rates. Burns resisted. Nixon threatened. On the secret tapes, he even floated stacking the Fed with loyalists who'd do what he wanted. Eventually, Burns gave in. The short-term result? Cheap money, easy growth. The long-term result? Inflation spiraled. The economy stalled. And America got a new word. Stagflation. All right, let's do some stagflation 101. First, let's talk about why Trump wants to cut rates. Lower interest rates make it cheaper to borrow money. That means more spending by consumers, businesses, and investors. Markets go up. Home prices tick higher. People feel richer. That's the vibe he wants. Things are booming. But it's not real. It's like slapping a fresh coat of paint on a crumbling building. Sure, from the outside it looks like growth, but the foundation is still cracked. You didn't fix anything. You just covered it up. And when those low rates flood the economy without real productivity, without better wages, stronger output, smarter investment, then all you've done is increase demand. People are buying more, chasing the same amount of goods. That's when prices start to rise. That's inflation. Now, imagine inflation rising, but the economy starts to stall. Those tariffs are dragging down trade. Maybe productivity slows. Maybe people stop spending. Oh, I don't know, because they wake up every day and wonder if the economy is going to make it. So now prices are still going up, but growth isn't. That's just not a red flag. That's the definition of stagflation. Prices rise, growth stalls, wages freeze, you pay more, but earn the same. There's a reason all functioning economies, the US, Canada, the EU, have central bank independence. Central banks like the Fed are supposed to think in decades, not election cycles. It's all designed for the hard calls to be made free from the short-term desperation of politicians. But Trump wants to break that. He wants to turn monetary policy into likes. It's not just reckless, it's authoritarian. It's not just bad economics, it's a threat to the system. Because once the Fed becomes just another political arm of the presidency, the dollar loses trust, markets lose faith, inflation becomes unanchored, and working Americans pay the price while billionaires find the exits. And look, I'm not American. I'm in Canada. But America, it matters what you do. You went down in 2008 and you dragged the whole world with you. So please, smarten up. If you're a Trump supporter, can you please wake up? There's no grand strategy here, no long game. He's not playing 4D chess. He's not planning, he's winging it day by day. He's the guy who shows up to the final exam completely unprepared, praying the fire alarm goes off. And if it doesn't, he takes the test, he fails, and then he claims it was rigged. Blames the teacher. This time the teacher is Jerome Powell. It baffles me that Republican lawmakers who actually have their jobs on the line come to the midterms and who are going to be royally ruined if the economy craters like it looks like it might aren't screaming out. At what point are they going to acknowledge the obvious truth that even if the Republicans get decimated at the midterms and that every single day of Trump's presidency is an in-kind contribution to AOC's future presidential campaign, that Trump simply doesn't care about the party? He has never cared. When people muse about a possible third Trump term, I go, no. Look at what he's up to with the tariffs, the unconstitutional seizures, and deportations, the general F-it vibes he's got going on. It's clear that he couldn't care less about the future. He's on a kamikaze mission. He's at the club doing his stupid dance, pouring drinks for the American people. But my American friends, please don't take a sip, please, because that MAGA Moscow mule is laced. It's roofied. And finally, America, if you get through this crazy Trumpian ordeal, please wake up. Learn from this. But whatever you do, don't be the stupid kid on the White Lotus who doesn't wash the blender sitting out the next morning when he makes his protein shake. Spoiler alert, and stop the video here if you haven't seen it. Unlike him, you just might not wake up.
Found any.
Democrats managed to unseat a 3-term Republican mayor in a red state this week. John Ewing Jr., Democrat, defeated Republican incumbent Gene Stoddart in Omaha, Nebraska. Nebraska, of course, is a red state. However, Omaha is considered more of a blue dot. Nevertheless, it has been 12 years since the city had a Democratic mayor. And to make things a bit more interesting, just to show you the significance of this victory, Ewing is going to be the first black mayor of Omaha, Nebraska. Again, perhaps a blue dot in the middle of a red state, but nevertheless, they had gone Republican 3 times in a row and finally said enough is enough. Ewing ran his campaign. He actually had an ad that said, quote, "Let's say no to the chaos and elect a mayor who will actually get things done." Referring, of course, to the chaos that Donald Trump and the Republican Party is causing across the country. So he ran on an anti-Trump platform and pledged, by the way, not just, hey, Trump sucks, but also, I'm going to do things for you. I'm going to focus here at home. I'm not going to bow down to any politician. I'm going to get things done because you need things to get done. And that's not all. For anybody who thinks like, well, again, Farron, you said it's a blue dot. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Again, they've voted Republican in the last 3 elections. But what they voted against was a candidate in Jean Stoddart who actually tried to make the election about social issues. She ran an ad claiming that Ewing, even though he never did, supported transgender athletes playing in sports. And she tried to make that the focal point of her campaign, and the voters were like, no. See, that is why this is so significant. Because she ran a traditional Republican campaign in a red state. Let's talk about social issues. Let's talk about transgender people in bathrooms or in sports, because that's what really matters to you at the end of the day. And the voters said, no, it doesn't. We actually care about the issues that affect us on a daily basis. In fact, Ewing said this. His campaign used her attack on transgender individuals to say, quote, Jean is focused on potties. John is focused on fixing potholes. So turned it right back against her. Brilliant campaign, absolutely smart strategy there. And this is not the first time in recent elections that Republicans in, typically Republican areas have had their asses handed to them by Democratic candidates. A couple weeks ago on a Saturday, a school board election in deep red Texas, this was not a blue dot Texas, by the way, voted out all 3 Republicans, replaced them with Democrats.
So here's the deal. Government spending is way up under Donald Trump. Now, you might be saying, but David, Doge, they were cutting everything. They've been talking about cuts for years, and Doge has been running full speed ahead for months. We were getting more efficient. We were draining the swamp. We were finding efficiencies and getting rid of bloat and pork and all of this stuff. Trump's government has already spent $166 billion more than we had spent at this time last year under President Joe Biden. This is with Doge, slashing federal programs, pushing out workers, cutting services that people rely on. And the deficit has still grown by nearly $200 billion. So a sensible question is to say, what happened? Where's the money going? How could it be that with Doge cutting, we somehow have spent even more money? Well, military spending is up $39 billion year over year, despite being told, oh, Trump would consider cutting the military. We had people on the right and some on the left saying we might see Trump cut military spending. No, we're not. Well, military spending is up $39 billion year over year. Border and immigration enforcement is up $18 billion. We've spent an extra $18 billion this year so far compared to last year at this same point in time. Now, there are some who say, well, that's good. We want Trump doing the border stuff. Okay. But he said he was going to cut the deficit. He's actually blown it up. And then Social Security and Medicare are up $70 billion year over year. Why? Because boomers are retiring and boomers are drawing down more benefits that we can't cut because they're entitled to them. They've paid into them. We have a responsibility to provide those benefits. So the math of it is not particularly difficult to understand. Trump is cutting small, tiny, shriveled up programs, a $30,000 DEI thing that they don't like. And it's leading to the dumping of money into the deportation machine, into the military. And meanwhile, the programs that really cost the most when you look at the totality of the budget, Social Security, Medicare, those are going to keep growing unless you're willing to cut benefits, which they sort of are, but more with Medicaid rather than with Medicare and Social Security, although we will see where that lands. You ask Republicans in Congress, are you willing to cut Medicare or Social Security benefits? They say, we're not going to touch benefits. We're going to touch bloat, and we're going to touch waste, and we're going to touch fraud, which they still have not actually found.
All right, guys, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. I really appreciate your support. If you like this type of content, consider subscribing to the channel. Please give me a thumbs up and give me your opinion on the comments below. Credit to all the content creators, full credit to them. Let's talk about the situation that we are in right now. It is crazy what's going on with the government at this point. With all of us in United States, including myself, we are in this together. The only way we're going to be able to get out of this mess is just, like I said, staying together, strong, and say something about it. Social media, protests and do whatever you have to do. That's the only way we're going to be able to maybe alleviate the situation, because this situation is getting out of control. The Republican Party, what they doing to the United States, inflation is growing, and they just want to, continue spending money, and all the money that they are spending is the taxpayer money. Anybody that's working, is paying money to the government so they could live a better life. And the government, they really don't care about middle class, so they don't even care about anybody else, just themselves. Like they said, Trump is just focusing on himself, his family, and the rest of his friends, to make more money during this 4 years that he's going to be in power. He is focusing to get richer and richer, and all of us, the rest of the people in the United States, is just suffering and getting poor and poor and poor. So let me know what you think about the whole situation in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next video. Thank you for your support. Bye bye.